Hello, everyone, and welcome to Orsi Markets. This is Alejandro, and I have my co-host Serhii on the show. Serhii, can you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. This is Sergey talking, and today we will be discussing what's going on with our portfolio. And Alejandro, let's show our users and visitors like what is going on today in the
And we're gonna get right on that, man. But I gotta know: did you color your hair blonde? Looks
Ah,
different. You look blonde today. Did you color your hair blonde?
no.
No, are you sure? It must be lighting. You gotta. Looks good on you. If you colored it blonde, it looks good. If you didn't color it blonde, that's all right. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and start talking about our what we came to talk about today. So I'm gonna go ahead and just share my screen here. So as you can see, we're gonna be discussing Google, Seagate Technologies, and then some very interesting news about the Bank of New York, right? So over the last month, Google has done incredibly well. I mean, this thing went from being about $273 a share on March 30th, and now it's 397, and it just continues to climb, right? And some of the reasons for this have to do with market mechanics, but other things is that over time Google hadn't really seen a lot of growth, especially during the conflict with Iran. Everything just started to drop, and then once things stopped dropping back in March 31st, it just skyrocketed, right? But a better story that we had today is Seagate Technologies. Like for anyone who's been following Seagate, if you guys have seen it since March until now, this thing has just skyrocketed. I mean, from March of 25th, about a year ago, until now, this thing has gone up about 1,200%, right? So what is happening with the stocks? Like, why are they growing so much? I mean, if you put $10,000 on this thing last year, you'd have 120 grand right now, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today is why do stocks go through such momentum and what happens? Like, what is the reason for them to grow so much? And then, another thing we're going to be talking about is Bank of New York Mellon. So what they're doing is they are now going to be working with Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates in order to bring a little more regulation into the industry of crypto, where we're going to have a big bank, the Bank of New York, and it's partnering with Abu Dhabi in order to have strategic collaboration to deliver digital assets and infrastructure in the UAE, right? So for anyone who's watching the news, UAE just got out of OPEC, the cartel of petroleum, basically. And right after that happened, everyone started trying to figure out like what's going on. And it's just like the UAE is trying to stop depending only on petroleum and to start, depending on a bigger infrastructure. And they see a lot of growth in the crypto market. So they want to be a hub for people to come and put their money in the UAE. So that's why they're partnering with the Bank of New York, and for Bank of New York as the custodians, it allows them to collect fees and make money from this particular venture. So first thing we're going to talk about is Google. Why did Google grow so much? Well, some of the things that happened is that from March until now, Google has been going through, Google is always in trouble with the courts in Europe. If you guys ever watch the news, like Google is usually in trouble because they're not, holding the correct naming structure when it comes to telling the people in Europe that they are holding their privacy correctly, or they are in trouble because they are giving away people's data in a way that they're not supposed to be giving it, or they're just in trouble because they're such a huge company, people want to sue them to make money. And being in the courts is troublesome. Anyone who has to go to court, like any company who's going to go to court, their stock is going to drop because investors get nervous. But because they have been able to, slowly close all of these different court proceedings that they've had, they've been able to stabilize. And now, finally, when everything was done and people were looking at where do we put our money over the last 6 weeks, they said, you know what, Google is a really good place to put it. So they put their money on Google. Then on approximately like March 9th, or yeah, April 26th, as we see here, they went ahead and they had their earnings and review, and they just did like really well, right? They had a huge surprise on their earnings and a huge surprise in revenue, so that caused it to, skyrocket even more. And now it's beginning to stabilize. So for anyone who's been owning Google for a while, you've done handsomely well. So congratulations. For anyone who hasn't, keep this stock on your radar. It's a really good stock to hold. Okay. And then, do we have any actual news with Google? Not really. But what I wanted to talk about was there's a difference between holding Google with an L and holding Google without an L, right? There's a difference in these two companies. So Google with an L is a class A, which gives you voting rights. So if you're interested in actually voting in this company, you'll actually want to own Google with an L, because that gives you class A, and that just allows you to vote. But if you notice, like, the actual performance on the two stocks is not, that much difference. So if you're only looking at profiting from spikes in the ownership of the company, then you don't really have to think about too much whether you should own Goog, like GOOG, or Google with an L. They're gonna more or less give you the same returns.
So basically, when do I get it right to this assets with ownership and without ownership? It's like from very beginning when Larry Page and Sergey Brin basically decided to have the ownership with the company, and they like made pretty interesting structure of the stocks. So they were basically owning the voting ones, and they were selling like the ones that are not voting, right? And it still stays within.
Sure. Yeah, more or less that's what happens with this, especially companies that are very, very large. You have them issue two sets of stocks, either Class A or Class C or Class C. And usually Class C give you ownership of the shares, but they don't give you any voting rights. So Class A tend to give you more voting rights. As far as like the specifics of why a person should buy one or why they should buy another, that's really preference, and it takes quite a bit of explaining. But in summary, if all you're doing is trying to buy low and sell high, you're gonna profit from either Goog or Google with an L. Long story short. But if you want to follow the stock, have ownership for like a very long term, and have voting rights, and be able to go and say, no, you know what, I don't agree with you taking a company in this path, or be able to be present when a company is making very large decisions that are going to affect the value of your company, then you need to own, Class A shares. And as an investor, you have the option to own both. And usually Class A shares, and Class C, they tend to perform exactly the same. One doesn't really give you a return larger than the other.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to be looking at Seagate. So what happened with Seagate is also just, amazing, because basically they have been able to surprise the market every time they have earnings. So that's why, like, this stock just continues to go up in price, right? So, like, look at that here. They had their last earning call on March 26th. They had positive surprises on both, and then, here we go, it spikes, right? Now here today, like this week, it's gonna from 751 all the way up to, I looked at it earlier today, it was nearly 800 before pulling back to about 782, right? So between yesterday and today, this thing went up $23 a share. And between the start of the week, uh about here, right? Like May 4th until today, it's gone up almost $50 a share. So think about that. For every 100 shares that you own, you just made $5,000, right? So that's what's pretty incredible. If you have like $100,000 sitting around, and you're not doing much with it, you just have to catch the right entry point for these stocks, and it will, get you into these positions where you're going to be able to do pretty well when it comes to the performance for just 1 week. So this is how I decide what stocks to purchase, right? So for example, this is the portfolio that was updated. It's basically telling me that I should be holding Cassie Energy, which is a utility company, Google, SPX, and then it tells me to get rid of gold and to get rid of Microsoft, and also to buy WST, which is healthcare. It's a healthcare section within pharmaceuticals. So I'm not going to talk too much about WSC. I'm a little hesitant to get into that one because I've seen it pulling and pushing, and I haven't really seen anything exciting. But the algorithm that I built says keep an eye on it. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, right? But the ones that are really interesting for me are STX and Google because I've been following them for a while and I see now that they're doing pretty well. So it's been worth the investment, especially, when you catch it early on. And there's still a lot of room to grow for STX, for anyone who's out there trying to think about what to invest in, keep your eye on STX. It may be a good stock for you. And then as far as like, if you just want to get like a very quick view on this, so if you notice, the entire sector is doing really well. So Western Digital, Micron Technologies, all of this, right? 1.69%, 13.22%. All of these are hardware companies. So why are hardware companies doing well? Well, if you think about it, there is so much push for AI and everything else that is like AI related that all your software companies like Microsoft and Meta and Oracle, all of them, they're, OpenAI, like ChatGPT, they're all pushing to get hardware in order to push the frontiers of AI. So what does that mean? That means that if you have energy, you're gonna do well because people are gonna be investing in energy, right? Like these are the companies that have the cash. They want to grow their AI, so they're gonna be spending money on people who can deliver the chips and the energy. So energy, that's a good company to own because it's gonna be delivering energy. And then Seagate delivers hardware, Western Digital delivers hardware, Micron Technologies delivers hardware. So Nvidia, which is like the darling of the stock market, Intel, which is one that people tend to forget about. All of these are going to be able to deliver hardware for AI. So it's just important that you keep an eye on those and you continue to pay attention to the market so you can make smart choices when it comes to your investments.
Yes, this is interesting. And really, the ecosystem, like energy and hardware. So Seagate basically, this is the companies that we are buying HDDs from, right? It's like
Yeah,
those.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
majority of this company, all of the hardware, like memory chips, their contract for 5 years already fulfilled. So they will be shipping for data centers for the next
yeah.
couple of years. At least this is boom
And
AI technology.
and there's data centers popping up left and right, and if you watch the news, everything in the news is AI related right now, so it's what's hot. So you need a place to store things, you need a place to process things, and Seagate provides that infrastructure, right? So that's why they're able to perform well and to continually outperform the market. So now we're gonna be talking about something that is, not so exciting, a little bit more boring, but I think, also important because it gives infrastructure. And then we're gonna just discuss how much this has been talked about lately. So for anyone who's been watching the news, they know that, digital assets and the digital asset infrastructure is just continuing to grow. This is here and it's here to stay. So if I remember correctly, like the first country to adopt digital currency was Ecuador. I think that they converted it into legal tender back in the day, like when they were first coming out back in like 2020, I think. And now more and more other countries are looking at, stable coin. They understand that people want to use digital assets and that for a lot of people who don't have access to physical currency, digital assets become the way to go, right? So it makes sense that as the UAE gets out of OPEC, they stop their dependence in petroleum. They start looking to venture out into other markets. Sure enough, they're going to be venturing to digital asset infrastructure, right? So that's why this is very important. But what's really interesting is that it didn't quite hit the market yet, right? Because if you see the Bank of New York, even though like they're moving $56 trillion, right? Like if we look here, you see that 59.4 trillion in assets under custody. That's what this says here for anyone who's not looking. $59 trillion in assets, and it didn't move. So people maybe just were not paying attention. So what does that mean? That means that like this thing is at a really good entry point right now, right? Because it's gonna go up in prices. A bank is in the financial sector. So when you're looking at where do I put my money in the financial sector, if you don't have a choice, or I'm sorry, not if you don't have a choice, but if you don't have any real targets, put it in the Bank of New York. They're already holding all the assets. They're holding all their money. You know, very stable company, very good within the financial sector. Good place to put your money in. And yeah, that is basically all that I wanted to talk about on the episode today. Sergey, what you got for us today, man?
Yeah. Thank you for like pretty interesting overview. And yeah, I think we have to do like more deep dives into the companies. So our audience, please tell us in the comments if we should do more of this kind of content, and let us know if you are interested. And like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode.
All right, yeah, for sure. If you guys want us to talk about anything specific, just leave us a message, leave us a comment, and we'll go ahead and do our research on it and talk about it on the show. So, for anyone who's watching us today is Friday, May 8th. So we wish you a wonderful weekend and see you on the next episode.